She didn't know the man she'd married was a millionaire. She didn't even know he had been watching everything from his car that morning. All she knew was the sting of soda hitting her face, the crack of her back against the sidewalk, and the betrayal in the eyes of the man who used to promise forever. What began as a desperate trip to the hospital turned into a moment that would be broadcast across the world. A pregnant black woman blocked at the hospital door by 4 men, one of whom used to call her his wife, now part of a violent rejection. But what they didn't know was who she really was, and who was about to show up for her. It was just past 7 a.m. when Alana Monroe, 7 months pregnant and breathing heavier than usual, stepped out of her apartment building in South Atlanta. The sun was already high, casting long golden rays across the city's gritty sidewalks, bouncing off windows, making halos around the dust clouds that trailed behind passing cars. Her old boots scuffed against the cracked pavement, a brown duffel, bag over one shoulder and one hand resting protectively over her belly. She hailed a cab, knowing full well the bus wouldn't get her to Grady Memorial in time for her checkup, and money was tight, but the pain in her lower back had grown sharper, more insistent. The cab dropped her off near the emergency entrance, where her story took a turn no one could have predicted. As she crossed the drive, she noticed them, 4 men standing just outside the hospital's sliding glass doors. 3 were strangers, muscled up, angry-looking, but the 4th... Her breath hitched. It was Jason, her ex-husband, the man she'd once built a dream with, who left the moment life got hard, the moment her pregnancy test turned positive. His eyes, which once held warmth and promises, now gleamed with resentment. "You don't belong here," he muttered as she approached, stepping into her path. One of the other men sneered, holding up a crumpled soda cup. "Ain't no entry for liars and gold diggers," he growled, and before she could step back, cold Coke splashed across her face. She gasped, instinctively shielding her belly, her footing slipping. She went down hard. A crack echoed as her elbow hit the concrete. People nearby screamed. A nurse stepped out, shouting for security. A security guard ran from inside, but froze at the sight of the 4 men. Jason raised his hands like he was innocent, already rehearsing his excuses. "She attacked me," he lied. Alana's vision blurred from the impact and humiliation, but her mind was sharp. She knew this wasn't just random cruelty. This was punishment. Jason had found out she'd moved on, and worse, she was happy. What he didn't know, what almost no one knew, was that the man she married 2 months ago in a quiet courthouse ceremony was watching everything unfold from a black SUV just across the street. Marcus D. Rowe, real estate mogul, former Marine, and Atlanta's youngest black billionaire, was leaning forward in his seat, his eyes locked on the scene. He hadn't joined her inside because Alana had insisted on independence. "I want to do this on my own," she told him. "People always think I need saving. I don't want you to be another man who speaks for me." And so he stayed behind, until he saw her fall. Marcus opened the car door slowly, removing his designer sunglasses, revealing the fire in his eyes. As he approached, the 4 men were still shouting, the nurse still calling for backup. Jason was now yelling that Alana had faked the pregnancy, trying to trap him. But his words faltered as he saw the man approaching, clean-cut, 6'3", dressed in a suit worth more than Jason's yearly income. "Alana," Marcus said softly, his voice slicing through the noise. He knelt beside her, lifting her gently, his hands steady despite the boiling rage inside him. "Are you hurt?" She nodded, tears streaking the soda down her cheeks. "They pushed me. They threw it at me." Her voice cracked. Marcus stood slowly, turned to Jason and the others, and said just 3 words. "You're all done." Silence. One of the men laughed nervously. "Who the hell are you?" Marcus didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out his phone, dialed a number, and within minutes, 2 black SUVs rolled up, bodyguards emerging like shadows. The hospital director appeared next, breathless, having been informed mid-meeting by Marcus's assistant that one of his staff had failed to protect a patient. Jason looked confused now, then horrified, as he recognized Marcus from magazine covers, real estate ads, and TV interviews. Wait, you're her husband, Marcus replied, stepping closer. And I don't let anyone put their hands on my wife. Cameras flashed. Someone in the crowd had already gone live on social media. The video of a pregnant black woman being assaulted in broad daylight and her billionaire husband arriving to shut it all down was spreading like wildfire. Alana was ushered inside, the hospital now scrambling to treat her with the utmost care. The doctors confirmed her baby was okay, just a scare and a bruised hip. But outside, the world was catching up. Jason and the other 3 men were detained, not just for assault, but for violating a restraining order Alana had quietly filed months earlier when Jason threatened to ruin her life. The story reached every corner of the internet by sundown. Headlines read, "Pregnant black woman attacked outside hospital. Husband's identity stuns everyone." But inside that hospital room, Alana wasn't thinking about headlines. She was holding Marcus's hand, her voice quiet. "I didn't want you to see me like that," she whispered. Weak, crying, broken. Marcus kissed her hand. "That's not what I saw. I saw a mother protecting her child. A woman standing up even while she was falling." The days that followed were a whirlwind. Civil rights groups reached out. Marcus publicly announced a new fund to support pregnant women experiencing harassment or domestic abuse. Alana's story became a rallying cry, not just about racism and misogyny, but about the resilience of black women and the men who finally stood beside them instead of behind them. She gave birth 2 months later to a healthy baby girl named Faith. And at that moment, holding her daughter in the same hospital that had nearly turned her away, Alana whispered, "You were born into a world that tried to keep us out. But look at us now, baby. Look at us now." Suddenly, just as the nurses adjusted Alana's bed and the soft cry of baby Faith settled into a calm coo, the door to her private suite swung open, not aggressively, but with a kind of urgency wrapped in respect. A tall woman in a navy blue pantsuit stepped in, flanked by 2 staffers and carrying a leather portfolio. Her badge gleamed. Deputy Director of Civil Rights Affairs, State of Georgia. She introduced herself as Celeste Morrow and gently asked if she could speak with Alana and Marcus. Alana, still cradling Faith, exchanged a look with Marcus, then nodded. Celeste explained that the incident outside the hospital, already viral with over 12 million views, had triggered a statewide investigation into hospital discrimination and public security neglect. "It's not just what happened to you, Mrs. Rowe," she said softly. "It's that it keeps happening, to women of color, to the vulnerable, to those who don't have someone powerful standing beside them." Marcus narrowed his eyes. "So, what are you going to do about it?" Celeste didn't flinch. "With your help, we're going to change everything." Within the next 48 hours, Marcus and Alana were on a televised roundtable with doctors, lawmakers, and activists. Alana, nervous but steady, spoke clearly. "I was told I was too loud, too dramatic, too stubborn. But if I hadn't been all of those things, I wouldn't be holding my daughter right now." The room fell silent. The internet erupted. Hashtags flooded every feed. "Stand with Alana. She is not alone. Protect black mothers." And then, in another turn no one expected, one of the hospital janitors, a quiet elderly man named Leo, came forward. He'd been there that day. He'd seen everything but was too afraid to speak. Now, with the world watching, he provided hidden security footage from a secondary angle, one that captured Jason's smirk as he handed the soda cup to his friend before Alana even arrived. It was premeditated, coordinated, and damning. Charges were upgraded. The hospital, facing mounting pressure, issued a public apology and its board was forced to step down. But Alana didn't want revenge. She wanted change. She worked with Celeste to launch a program called Safe Entry, a nationwide initiative that trained hospital staff and security on implicit bias, nonviolent intervention, and maternal rights. Months later, Alana was invited to speak before Congress. She stood there not just as a mother, not just as a victim, but as a force. "I didn't marry a millionaire," she said into the microphone. "I married a man who saw me, who believed me. But I want to live in a country where every woman is seen, believed, protected, whether she's married to a billionaire or walking alone." When she returned home that evening, baby Faith was asleep in Marcus's arms. Alana watched them, both for a long moment, heart full. "We built something, didn't we?" she whispered. Marcus smiled. "No, you did." And as the city skyline lit up behind their penthouse window, one building, just completed by Marcus's firm, shined, a name across its front entrance, the Alana Monroe Center for Maternal Justice. The world had tried to break her. Instead, she rose and changed it. The weeks that followed felt like a whirlwind stitched together by purpose. Every morning, Alana woke up in their sunlit penthouse to the soft sound of baby Faith's cooing and the comforting warmth of Marcus's arms around her. But rest was fleeting. Her phone constantly buzzed with interview requests, invitations to speak at universities, letters from mothers across the country. Many of the messages began the same way. "I thought I was alone until I saw you." That single sentence, repeated by women from Detroit to Dallas, became her new mission. One crisp autumn morning, as golden leaves swirled along the streets below, Alana sat across from a panel of female senators in Washington, D.C., her words ringing with a quiet fire. "We don't need your pity," she said calmly. "We need your policy." That testimony helped push through the Maternal Safety in Public Spaces Act, allocating millions in federal funds toward bias training, security reform, and emergency protections for vulnerable women, especially in underserved communities. Her name wasn't on the bill, but everyone knew whose voice shaped its core. Meanwhile, Jason and his accomplices faced justice. At the trial, Alana sat calmly in the gallery, Marcus holding her hand. The footage, the testimony, and the public pressure made it clear. Jason wasn't just an ex-husband. He was a symbol of a much larger problem: unchecked male entitlement, racial bias, and the violence of abandonment. The judge didn't mince words in sentencing. "You didn't just assault a woman," she said. "You assaulted the dignity of motherhood." Back home, Alana didn't celebrate with champagne or media posts. She tucked Faith into bed, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "You are why I fight." Marcus watched from the doorway, awe still in his eyes. "You know," he said one night as they overlooked the city skyline, "you've become more than a symbol. You're the storm they didn't see coming." Alana chuckled softly. "I'm not a storm. I'm a mother. That's more powerful than any storm." But fate wasn't finished. During a live televised panel about maternal safety in downtown Atlanta, a woman rushed the stage, not with malice, but desperation. She clutched a bruised toddler, crying, "No one listened to me. They told me I was overreacting. I didn't know where else to go." Security tried to intervene, but Alana stepped forward and embraced her. That moment, a mother holding another mother in front of millions, sparked a new movement: Mothers for Mothers. Within the year, Alana opened 5 centers across America, offering legal support, shelter, therapy, and advocacy training. Her foundation, backed by Marcus's quiet financial power and her loud moral leadership, grew beyond anything she had imagined. She began mentoring young women, many from the same streets she used to walk alone, and through it all, she never forgot the concrete. The coke, the fall. 1 year later, she stood once again outside that very hospital, this time not as a victim, but as the guest of honor. A plaque was unveiled near the emergency entrance. It read, "Here stood a woman who refused to be erased, because she stood. We built. As the applause faded and cameras clicked, a small voice from the stroller beside her whispered, "Mama." Alana knelt down, brushing Faith's curls with gentle fingers. "Yes, baby?" Faith pointed at the plaque and said, "That's you?" Tears welled in Alana's eyes as she nodded. "Yes, that's me. But one day, that will be you too." Behind them, Marcus reached into his coat and handed her a velvet box. She opened it slowly. It was a necklace etched with 3 small words. Survivor, mother, leader. Alana turned toward the city, her city, and smiled. She had been knocked down, spit on, humiliated, ignored. But now? Now she walked with the strength of every woman who had ever been told no and decided to rise anyway. And just as the sun dipped below the skyline, casting long golden rays across Atlanta once more, she whispered to herself, "Let them try to stop me now." That night, the city seemed quieter, as if holding its breath for what would come next. In the penthouse nursery, Faith slept peacefully under a mobile of golden stars, while Marcus stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching Alana in silent admiration. She had just finished a late-night call with a women's advocacy group in Oakland, and now sat by the window, scribbling plans in her worn leather notebook. Her hair was tied up, face lit only by the moonlight, but to Marcus she looked like royalty, regal not because of riches, but because of resilience. He stepped behind her, placed a hand on her shoulder, and said, "You've changed the world." Without trying to become famous, Alana leaned back into him. "I don't want fame. I want footprints, something Faith can walk in and then walk past." That was the difference. Alana didn't build movements for applause. She built them so no other woman would ever lie bleeding on the sidewalk wondering if her life mattered. 3. Weeks later, the mayor of Atlanta invited Alana to deliver the keynote address at a citywide peace conference. It was the first time the mayor's office had ever handed the stage over to a civilian, let alone a black woman from the very neighborhoods that the city too often forgot. Her speech wasn't full of lofty language or political rhetoric. It was a quiet storm, delivered with truth and steel. The way we treat women, especially black mothers, is a mirror of our values. If that reflection is ugly, don't break the mirror. Fix the face. Standing ovations followed. Schools began teaching a short module on everyday justice based on Alana's experience. A university even created a scholarship in her name for young women pursuing public advocacy. And yet she remained rooted, never unreachable, never untouchable. She still bought groceries from the corner market, still stopped to talk to young girls on the sidewalk, still sat on community panels,
without demanding headlines. But the past has a way of circling back.
One afternoon, during a visit to a safe entry training session at a local clinic, Alana saw a familiar face in the hallway, Leo, the janitor who had provided the footage that helped convict Jason. He looked older now, a little slower, but his eyes lit up when he saw her. "You still remember me?" he asked. Alana smiled warmly. "You helped change everything." Leo nodded, then pulled something from his pocket, a small, worn photo of a young girl. "My granddaughter," he said. "She's applying to college now, first in our family. I tell her about you all the time, that even when the world tries to shut you out, your voice can still echo." Alana hugged him, heart full. She had become an echo, a thunderclap, a north star for those lost in systems built to silence them. That night, Marcus surprised her with dinner on the penthouse rooftop. Candles. Soft jazz playing, the skyline stretching wide around them. "You ever think about leaving all this behind?" he asked, pouring her a glass of sparkling cider. Alana laughed. "Every day, but purpose doesn't let go that easy." Marcus smiled. "Good. Because I just got word. We're being invited to speak at the United Nations. They want to hear from the woman who changed hospital policy across a nation. Alana's breath caught, not out of pride, but out of clarity. The world wasn't knocking because of power or money. It was knocking because of truth. She looked at Marcus, then at the tiny gold necklace around her neck, then at the stars above. "Let's go," she said. "Let's make sure faith grows up in a world where no one questions a mother's right to stand." And as the wind shifted slightly, lifting the corner of her dress and rustling the pages of her notebook nearby, the city of Atlanta, once the site of her deepest pain, now stood beneath her feet. She had fallen here. She had risen here. And now she soared. ChatGPT said, months passed, but Alana's name only grew louder, not because she chased attention, but because her truth kept striking chords in places where silence had once ruled. Her face was no longer just on news panels. It now appeared in classrooms, community centers, murals on brick walls in underserved neighborhoods, and on book covers titled, "The Rise of Alana Monroe, A Voice for the Voiceless." But while the world cheered her, she remained focused on what mattered most, making lasting structural change, not just emotional moments. One crisp morning, Alana stood on the steps of the Georgia State Capitol, with Faith nestled in a carrier on her chest. Dozens of mothers flanked her, some survivors of domestic abuse, others who had lost their children to medical neglect, all carrying signs that read, "Respect begins at the door." They were launching the Safe Births Pledge, a national policy campaign demanding accountability from hospitals, better maternal care for Black women, and full funding for trauma response teams. Alana didn't speak from a teleprompter that day. She spoke from the soul. We are not statistics. We are stories. And stories deserve endings that don't start at the emergency room floor. The speech went viral within hours again, but this time, so did something unexpected. One of Jason's former associates, one of the men who had thrown the soda, issued a public confession video, tears streaming down his face. "We were told she was a liar," he said. "I believed him, but she wasn't lying. She was surviving. And we were cowards." The internet reeled, but Alana didn't comment. Instead, she wrote him a letter, never shared publicly, thanking him for stepping into the light, but reminding him that confession is not absolution. "Forgiveness," she wrote, "is a door you can knock on, but justice decides whether it opens." Meanwhile, Marcus expanded his development company's reach. Under Alana's influence, he shifted its mission. Every new housing project now included maternal wellness centers, fully funded clinics, and safe shelters for women in crisis. They named the initiative Monroe Havens. Alana served as chair of the board, but refused any salary. "Pay me in progress," she often said. Faith grew fast, her first words being "mama" and "sky." And her favorite place was still her mother's lap during community meetings. She would fall asleep as Alana spoke at town halls, her tiny body curled against the same chest that had once hit concrete in front of a hospital door. But now that door had a sensor named after Alana, a real one. The Monroe Protocol was adopted across major hospitals, programmed to alert a patient advocate anytime a pregnant woman was stopped or delayed outside emergency departments. What had been violence was now policy. What had been a tragedy was now a turning point. Then came the day Alana least expected. A quiet envelope in the mail. No official stamp, just hand-addressed. Inside, a letter from the White House. The president had read about her, seen her speeches, followed her movement. And now he was inviting her to serve on the National Council for Maternal Equity, alongside doctors, scholars, and survivors. Marcus read the letter aloud while Faith played nearby. Alana didn't smile at first. She closed her eyes, sat in, silent, and whispered, "Let me think about how many women never got this chance." But she accepted. She flew to Washington not in designer clothes, but in her signature simple blazer, the same notebook tucked into her bag. Her first words at the council's opening session: "I am not here to impress. I'm here to interrupt." From B. That moment, Alana Monroe helped write legislation that rewrote medical protocols, reshaped emergency responses, and redefined how America viewed Black motherhood. She became not just a name, but a framework, a litmus test, a reference in textbooks and doctoral theses. And still, on weekends, she would stroll through local parks with Faith, stopping to speak to strangers who needed a little encouragement, or a reminder that dignity is a birthright, not a privilege. Years later, when Faith turned 7, a statue was unveiled outside the original hospital where it all began. Not just of Alana, but of a mother holding her daughter, one arm raised not in defense, but in strength. The plaque read, "She stood when the world told her to kneel. She rose when they threw her down. She changed everything by refusing to disappear." Faith looked up at it, eyes wide, and asked, "Mama, is that really you?" Alana knelt beside her and whispered, "That's all of us, baby. Every woman who ever fought to be seen." And as twilight painted the city in hues of gold and lavender, mother and daughter stood beneath the symbol of a legacy born not from power or wealth, but from the unstoppable force of a woman who chose to rise and rise and rise again. Life lessons from the story: your voice matters. Even when it's ignored, Alana was dismissed, humiliated, and even physically attacked. But she never let the world silence her. The lesson: even when others try to shut you out, your truth has power. Keep speaking up. Being strong doesn't mean being alone. Alana believed in handling things herself, but her husband Marcus showed that true strength includes allowing others to stand with you. We don't have to carry the weight of injustice alone. Pain can be a platform for purpose. What began as a moment of suffering, being blocked from a hospital, became the spark that led to national reform. Our darkest moments can become the fuel for our greatest impact. Motherhood is power, not weakness. Alana refused to let anyone treat her pregnancy as a liability. She showed that being a mother is not a limitation, but a form of leadership. Forgiveness is noble, but justice is necessary. Even as people apologized, Alana understood that real change comes with accountability. It's okay to forgive, but that doesn't mean forgetting or letting injustice go unchallenged. Change doesn't require fame, only courage. Alana didn't chase the spotlight. She chased justice. You don't need to be famous to make a difference, just brave enough to stand. When others sit, legacy is built on everyday choices. Alana didn't set out to be a hero. She just refused to back down. Our legacy is shaped by the small, powerful decisions we make every day to do what's right. Trauma doesn't define you. How you rise from it does. She fell. She was hurt. But she rose and changed the system that failed her. Your past isn't your prison, it's your platform. Never underestimate the ripple effect of one action. From a soda thrown to a national policy passed, everything started with one moment. Your actions matter. One act of courage can change the world. See, believe, protect, especially for those who can't speak. Yet Alana didn't just fight for herself. She fought for every mother, every unborn child, and every woman yet to face what she did. Real power is using your voice to protect others, not just yourself.